Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Big Apple Blitz. What's going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Anthony Rivardo. Anthony, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I mean, we're finally here, right? This is the week that we have been waiting for. The start of the NFL season is just days away. The Giants kicking off on Sunday, the Jets kicking off on Monday. Football is finally back, and I'm really happy, really excited to be back and to be discussing real NFL football going forward. No more of that preseason, no more of that training camp practices. Real, full NFL football is finally back.
Absolutely. On Thursday, when we do our next episode, there's going to be a football game. So really excited for that. And then we'll preview the Giants. And I'm sure there'll be some more Jets storylines. And then Monday rolls around. Then we got Jets 49ers to get really more into and react to. A Giants-Vikings game. Really exciting times for not only this show, but for the NFL season to get going. And we got some news that Trent Williams, that holdout is over. So both Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams are no longer doing their holdout or hold-ins. And Hassan Reddick is the lone holdout remaining for the New York Jets. So a lot of storylines around that one because it has a major impact on the Jets Week 1 matchup against San Francisco. Your reaction to Trent Williams ending his holdout and what it means for the Jets that Hassan Reddick is still holding out.
Yeah, Trent Williams ending his holdout now is obviously poor timing for the Jets, who were hoping to not have to face off against Trent Williams. For the San Francisco 49ers, that is probably the most important thing that they've done all offseason. Like, they had their whole saga with Brandon Ayuk. They finally got him under contract, decided not to trade him. But the most important thing that they've done this offseason is re-signing Trent Williams, which they got done today just in the nick of time. So for a team like the Niners that has Super Bowl aspirations, I mean, you could argue Trent Williams is their most important player. So big time move there for them. And obviously doing it just in time for the start of the regular season, hopefully helping them get off to a good start against the Jets is what they're aiming to do. But the Jets, meanwhile, really need their star pass rusher to match up against Trent Williams. They don't have him. Hassan Reddick still holding out. I can't believe that we're this deep into the offseason. We're not even in the offseason anymore. We are in the regular season now. And Hassan Reddick still not practicing with the team, not even reporting to the building. I don't know what to say about it. I think the whole saga is a bit ridiculous, and I'm hoping that he does return. But at this point, if I were a Jets fan, I'd probably be pretty interested in trying to trade him if it were me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's playing in week 1 at this point. The game is less than a week away. And Hassan Reddick has not had a single practice with the New York Jets yet, which is just it's really unbelievable for this team to get to this point with Reddick. And again, I've said both sides are at fault for this one. I think Reddick is getting some of the absolute worst advice, and that's kind of what Zachary Berner chimes in and says. Reddick must have the dumbest agent on the planet. On the Jet side of things too, Robert Saleh spoke to the media this morning, and he was asked when the last time he spoke to Hassan Reddick was, and it was before training camp. So, like, the Jets having this hard stance that they won't talk to the guy unless he reports, to me, I think is just way too much of an extreme. I'm not saying that you just completely cave in and go, we'll give you whatever you want, but I think you have to be open to negotiations. And especially at this point, like, this should have been done weeks ago, right? The urgency should have been ramped up a little bit more weeks ago. But we're less than a week away from kicking off against the San Francisco 49ers, who's probably on paper your toughest opponent, and you're not going to have your best pure pass rusher for the game. It's just unbelievably frustrating that it's gotten to this point, and I don't know when the end of the line is coming for this thing.
I don't either. And I do think it spills into the regular season. I don't think he suits up in week one. I don't think Reddick is eager to get back onto the field. I think that he's kind of fine just holding the Jets hostage in this way. But I do agree with you in the argument being that the Jets should have been making more of an effort. Like the fact that they haven't spoken to Reddick since before training camp. I mean, that was a long time ago. That's the entire month of August. No communication between Saleh and Reddick. That almost doesn't feel like it's excusable. That feels inexcusable. Like, why hasn't he reached out? Come on, like you got to try and make something happen here. I get that Saleh has a lot going on and he has a lot of players to coach and develop and a lot to be focused on in the month of August, but you could argue that Reddick is one of the most important pieces in that Jets defense. They lost Bryce Huff. They need a star pass rusher. And when you're preparing to go against Trent Williams and the San Francisco 49ers in week one, that's when you want Reddick at his best, practiced, game condition, ready to go. I mean, even if he does return this week somehow, and the Jets are like, okay, let's try and get him ready to go for week one, will he be? Is he in game shape? Has he conditioned enough? I don't know. Like, he might not even be ready to go until the second or third week of the season at this point, since he's pretty much skipped all of the summer training. I know that there's been videos of him doing some training away from the facilities, but it's not exactly the same thing, right? He's not in game shape. He's not necessarily had the opportunities to learn the playbook and gel with his teammates. So at this point, I don't even know what the impact of Hassan Reddick would be if he were to suit up in week one. And ultimately, I don't think that he will. So I think that they're going to be missing out on Reddick and his impact for not only the first week of the season, but because it's going to take him a little bit of time to ramp up the first several weeks of the season. And at this point, I feel like he's just shooting himself in the foot in his attempt to try and get that long-term contract.
Yeah, he definitely is, because I don't know, like if he just showed up and played all 17 games and had yet another 10 plus sack season, someone is going to give him on the open market. If it's the Jets or not, someone's going to give him a deal. But if he comes back after, let's say he does the Chris Jones, where sits out week one, then signs, but as you mentioned, is maybe slow to ramp up in the first few weeks, has a hamstring lingering, and then he plays like 9 games this year, he's going to cost himself millions and millions and millions of dollars. And that's not even including yet how much he's cost himself in the holdout, plus his game checks. If he misses this game on Monday, that's $850,000 right there. And that just compiles game after game after game. So, I mean, he was set to make $15 million and he didn't want to play for that this year. His fines are upwards of $4 million now, plus almost another million for each game you miss. Like, again, I'm going to ask, when does it end? But I know we don't know the answer to it. It's really baffling. It really is.
It truly is. I mean, even at this point, if he were to get that pay raise, let's say up to 20 million per season, hasn't he pretty much already lost that raise, right? With all of the practices that he's missed and the fines that he would receive, unless the Jets cover it. But at this point, I don't think that they would. I do wonder if this results in a trade. I know he requested one. Obviously, it's unprecedented for a player to be traded for and then traded away in the same offseason or in the same few month span, since now we're in the season. But I do wonder if that is the only way this gets resolved. I don't know if a team is really willing to take him on at this point, but I have to imagine that the Jets are starting to wonder, maybe we did make a mistake trading for Reddick and maybe we could try and jump ship before it's too late.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, what team has the capacity to take him on right now. And then on top of that, like, what would you get for him in a trade? The Jets gave up a 2026 third round pick because that whole world knew he needed a new contract. That's why it wasn't a 2024 draft pick, and it was for a guy who's been a perennial double-digit sack guy. You're going to sell for, I don't know, a 7th round pick in 2029. I know that's impossible. You can only trade, a few years out in the draft, but any value he had is completely shot. And I don't know what team is now going to turn around and have the space or the capacity to trade for him. And then if you do that, like, man, Will McDonald better be ready to be a 10 sack guy this year and play closer to 50% of snaps. And I don't know if that's the case yet, which is just, again, this is all things compiling. And I know I feel like I'm ranting a little bit here, but it's been a really frustrating situation for the Jets. And I think you have guys on both sides of the aisle with the not only the team but also Reddick just not able to figure this one out.
Yeah, I mean,
As
it's hard
apparently
not to rant
cars
and
getting broken into, do you hear that? I don't know. That's just
I
so
do hear that.
frustrating.
It's pretty
Sorry.
faint, but I do hear it. No, but it's hard not to rant and hard not to be frustrated with the situation if you're a Jets fan. Like, obviously, from the outside looking in, as a Giants fan, it just looks like an absolute mess and a disaster. Like, this is worst case nightmare scenario when you trade for a player that you think is going to have this massive impact on your team. This is the last thing that you expect and the last thing that you want to see. So, for Jets fans who are ranting and frustrated, it's hard not to be. I mean, this is something that couldn't even imagine when the trade went through. And whether or not a resolution gets come to is a question. And I don't even know, again, how much of an impact he's going to make as soon as he gets back on the field due to the fact that he's missed so much time away from the team. So I don't know. It's really unlike anything that I've ever seen. I think that Reddick is extremely important to this team, but without him, at least if you're a Jets fan, you can feel comfortable with the fact that sans Reddick, this defensive front is still one of the best in the NFL. You still have a stable crop of pass rushers. You don't have that game breaker, that number one top tier guy on the edge in Reddick, but you still do have a bunch of quality pass rushers that you can feel comfortable with and know, like, if you compare that to a lot of the other teams around the NFL, it's still better than what most teams have. You're just missing that extra piece that makes you championship caliber defense.
Matthias chimes in, says something very similar. The Jets will be fine with those young pass rushers, and Leonard Taylor, Braden McGregor, Eric Watts included in that. Although I'm sure a couple of those guys are going to be inactive on game days, but they're going to have a much bigger role than I think was originally anticipated for those young guys with Hassan Reddick's absence. But we'll see. We'll really see there. Zachary Berner chimes in. It says, not NFL, but the downfall of Florida State without the Jets. Jordan Travis needs to be studied. I know. What's the pulse down there in Florida? Is it panic mode over Florida State?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's really crazy about that if they're a Florida State alum, but I'll tell you the panic that I've seen even greater. My friend Ethan is a huge Florida Gators fan. He's on watch, right? He is not doing well. Meanwhile, one of my other buddies, Jaquel, over the moon right now, can't stop posting University of Miami highlights on all of his social media feeds. So it's actually really fun living in this South Florida area where I have really close friends who are FSU fans, Miami fans, Gators fans, and they're all kind of going at it right now, posting different kinds of either depression posts or hype posts on their social media. It's been pretty fun to watch.
Absolutely. Good stuff to see. I think that's it on Reddick. We kind of just talked through what needs to happen, but waiting game continues there. We'll keep you updated if anything happens while we're live, but wouldn't count on it, unfortunately. But someone the Giants are counting on a lot, transitioning here to the defensive side of the ball, Deonte Banks, listed as the main X factor for this Giants football team. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up this topic and talk about Banks, but couple that with the news that the New York Giants signed Adoree Jackson, which obviously everybody who's been tuning into the show for the last few weeks, I've said this several times. The Giants needed to re-sign Adoree Jackson. So I'll pat myself on the back a little bit for calling that one way in advance. I've done that quite a few times here on Big Apple Blitz. My predictions have been pretty rock solid, I can't lie. But for Adoree Jackson coming back, really happy about the signing because I don't feel like it makes the Giants this great team. It doesn't really improve them all that much, but it gives them a higher floor. And I think for a defense that has so many young, inexperienced players and is so boom and bust, I think increasing your floor is just like that final step that you need to take to get ready for the regular season. So Adoree Jackson, a player who has actually played very well against the Vikings and Justin Jefferson in particular in the past. Getting him on this roster right ahead of week one feels pretty crucial, feels very exciting. Again, not like we signed some all-pro player. Jackson wasn't that great last year, a little bit washed up at this point in his career, but it's still an important move to give the Giants a little bit more experience, veteran leadership, and a higher floor in their secondary, coupled with the fact that Deonte Banks is preparing for that year two leap, getting ready to be that team's X factor. So I feel a lot better about the Giants secondary right now than I did a week ago. Of course, though, I do know there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, clearly work to be done there, but I know at length we've discussed the Giants corner two situation. And while Adoree Jackson might not be the guy that he was, his first couple years with the Giants after what he did last year for them, I think you could still argue that it's an upgrade at what they could have been trotting out there at that second corner spot. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Deonte Banks this year. I love the pick for the Giants a year ago. I thought he had a very strong rookie season, and I think he's going to establish himself as one of the better number one corners in football. But still, I don't think that takes away from the Giants are really relying on him to be a true shutdown corner. And if he's not, like, if there's no growth, like if he stays stagnant or God forbid even like takes a little bit of a step back, again, that's not what I think is going to happen here, but that just adds another element to how much this defense could struggle at that level, because I feel like they're relying on him to be that shut down like elite guy, and if he's anything but that, it's going to be a major issue for the defense.
It really can be. But I've been kind of making this argument all offseason long, and I made it once again on Fireside Giants. Someone caught the movie reference that I made when I did so. I was discussing the defensive coordinator change and how last year, Wink Martindale defense, right? We all know how aggressive he gets, how he's known for being blitz heavy, man coverage heavy. But last year, I made this joke on Fireside Giants that he went full Wink Martindale, and you never go full Wink Martindale, right? Because he took the man coverage and he ramped it up to 10. Like, he was running man coverage at a higher rate than ever. He took the blitz rate, he ramped it up. He said, okay, the Giants are getting more aggressive than ever. And the defense really fell apart in some ways. Yes, they did lead the NFL in takeaways, tied with the Baltimore Ravens, which was a great statistic. But they also got burned rather frequently over the top, had a lot of cornerbacks on islands. I mean, here's the most egregious one that just sticks out in my mind. Week 5 versus the Miami Dolphins, they had 6th-round rookie Trey Hawkins on an island, no safety help, over top, press man coverage, one-on-one with Tyreek Hill. How do you think that play ended? With like a 65-yard touchdown for Tyreek Hill, obviously. And that was the story of Wink Martindale's defense last year, because they had that play in that game, but they also had a play later in that game where Jason Pinnock returned an interception, 106 yards for a touchdown. So that was pretty much the entire story of the season for Wink Martindale's defense. And it did a lot of great things for some players who were in the right place at the right time to get turnovers, but also there were a lot of players in the wrong place at the wrong time, like Banks or Trey Hawkins, being isolated with the best wide receivers in the NFL, because Martindale was insistent on using this blitz-heavy press man defensive scheme. Now with Shane Bowen, it's going to be a lot more conservative. 4-man pass rush will be the emphasis, so you're going to see a lot of just straight rushes from Thibodeau, Burns, Dexter Lawrence, even Azeez Ojulari. And now you're going to have these defensive backs not stuck one-on-one by themselves against these top cornerbacks, versus these top receivers. These young cornerbacks are going to have more help through the zone coverage defense, like Banks, like Hawkins, and these other guys. So I feel a lot more confident in these guys going into the season than I did last year, just because I know they're not going to be exposed to as many difficult matchups and as many nightmare scenarios as they were last year. So I like Banks fitting into this probably a cover 3 zone defense is I think what they're going to run mostly. And he ran that all the time at Maryland. Like, everybody talks about Banks being this great man coverage corner. A lot of the times when you play that cover 3 zone, you're manning up an entire sideline, basically. That's where he really strived. So I'm excited for him to get back to what he did at Maryland that made him such a great player. And I do think that he has the opportunity to be an elite shutdown cornerback playing in a more simplified zone coverage defense that caters to the play of its cornerbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're talking on the Giants secondary right now, but you kind of mentioned with Thibodeau and Burns kind of just being in straight pass rushing roles. I think that's so much better suited for them. With talking about the comparison between Bowen and Wink Martindale, we know Wink sometimes with his exotic blitzes would have Kayvon Thibodeau dropping back in coverage and just other, random things. And I do think that those guys just consistently trying to, pin their ears back and get after the quarterback is really only going to benefit this Giants defense. I think the defense will be okay for the Giants this year. Really, their questions are on the offensive side of the ball. But again, I think you have to feel a lot better than you did just the last time we spoke on this Giants defense with the addition of Adoree Jackson, and again, one that you called.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel a lot more confident in it. And when you look around at this Giants secondary, I'm trying to find which tweet he's referring to.
I Sorry to cut you off there, but I wanted to toss this up because Johnny Boy says Ant's tweet about Adoree Jackson has me laughing so hard. So what was the tweet? Do we know offhand, or Johnny? Can you let
No,
us know in the
I
chat?
don't remember making a funny tweet about him, but I don't know.
Possible.
Also, another thing on Adoree Jackson, though, that I think is important to note, he never played under Shane Bowen during his time with the Tennessee Titans because Shane Bowen was only the linebackers coach, I believe it was, when he was with the Tennessee Titans. Adoree Jackson was. He became the defensive coordinator. Oh, this one. Yeah, that's right.
This made me laugh. After scrolling back, I think this got to be the one.
Yeah, no doubt.
A punt returner. So can you give the context to the chat if they don't know?
Yeah, context here, 2022 season, which I think is probably the best season of Adoree Jackson's career. It's the year where Dable took over as head coach. Giants went on to win a playoff game versus the Vikings. I believe it was week 10, somewhere around the middle of the season. The Giants inexplicably put Adoree Jackson back there as a punt returner. He runs right up the middle in the punt return, gets smashed in the head, gets smashed in the knee. Okay, MCL sprain, he's out for the next 6 weeks or so. Doesn't return until the postseason. During that time, the Giants couldn't really cover anybody at all. Adoree Jackson was severely missed. It was a stupid, bewildering decision by the Giants coaching staff to put him on special teams. He comes back into the postseason, has a vintage, like his career-defining performance against Justin Jefferson and the Vikings in that wild card round. But he was missed for those 6 weeks or whatever that he was out. And he basically was sacrificed for a meaningless punt return. It was just a stupid decision by the coaching staff, and Brian Dable wouldn't rule out putting Adoree Jackson back on punt return this season now that they've re-signed him. So hopefully he's learned his lesson, and I don't know, though. My question marks with Brian Dable, they stack up day by day.
Then why roster Gunnar Olszewski? I know we just had that conversation. I don't want to bring it back around, but come on, man. What are we doing? I don't get it.
I mean, and no slight on Adoree Jackson, but he's not even a good punt returner. He's never been a punt returner until the Giants tried to stick him back there and he lost a kneecap. That's it. That's the only time he's been a punt returner, and he's never been good at it. So I really don't get it. I just don't understand the decision making there.
I don't get it either. Ian wants to know, can Adoree go back to form because he's good at staying in zones and tackling? He's very good at.
Yeah, so the problem was that last year his tackling got significantly worse. And I don't know if it was because he forgot how to tackle or got worse at it or is aging. The argument was that he lost his effort, and the Giants were very unhappy with his lack of effort throughout the second half of the season. They felt like Jackson kind of quit on the team in some ways. So with that being the case, Adoree Jackson re-signing with this team came as a surprise to many of the beat reporters who thought because of his lack of effort last year, the Giants didn't want anything to do with him. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily fair. I think, again, he was just placed in a lot of really tricky situations in Wink Martindale's defense, and that caused him to get burned. Can he return to form being the main question? I'll answer that and say no. I don't think he's returning to 2022 form, but can he be an upgrade over what the Giants have had this preseason? Yes, because last year he was playing in the slot a lot, and then they were moving him around. He was never finding one stable home. Again, because he played with the Tennessee Titans back in up until 2021, that was Mike Vrabel's defense, and Shane Bowen was there. Shane Bowen then took over as the defensive coordinator for Tennessee and borrowed a lot of the same concepts that they had while Adoree Jackson was there. So it's going to be a similar defense to the one that he played in many years ago, which I think will allow him to get integrated quicker and probably have a pretty good season that might surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. So we'll see there on Adoree Jackson, but still, I think just a veteran that's familiar with the team. Granted, it's not the same scheme. Obviously making the change, we've made that abundantly clear that going from Martindale to Bowen, things are going to look different for defensively here for the Giants. But I'm looking forward to his return. I would feel much more comfortable. Forgive me if you answered this and I just missed it, but are you anticipating that he comes in and is just like good to start week 1 against the Vikings?
I think they're going to try and get him ready to start week 1. I don't know if he will be the starter per se. I think that Nick McLeod has earned the opportunity at the very least. And I think that they're going to want to give him a little bit more time to integrate, but I think that he'll play. I just don't know if he'll be the week 1 starter.
Got it. Totally fair there. So anything else on this Giants secondary before we keep it rolling here on today's episode?
It's as young and inexperienced as it can be. It's boom or bust, but I'm really hoping and praying that Deonte Banks takes that step forward that I anticipate for him.
Yeah, I think he's due for a big year. Next up, this one had me feeling a little bit weird, Anthony. So Bill Belichick apparently has a new show over at Underdog, and for the teaser for it, they posted a clip of Bill Belichick praising Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, and this New York Jets offense. I don't know how to feel about that after I don't know, like 2 decades of him ruining my sports fandom.
Yeah, obviously, Jets fans don't feel fondly of Bill Belichick. I mean, even if you want to go back even further, right? Wasn't he the head coach for like 24 hours of the New York Jets?
Yes, he did.
So,
And wrote on a napkin that he no longer wanted to be the coach.
yeah. So the hatred from Jets fans towards Bill Belichick will forever strengthen. But maybe he's cooling some tempers here by giving praise to some of their best players. And I think that my main takeaway from it is Belichick has had, the number of the Jets for many years, and he's game planned and he's schemed against them and he's studied these guys. And the fact that he singled out those two players and said that two of them or those two could be the best players in the league at their positions respectively, I think is pretty cool praise. And it's kind of exciting to hear.
No, it definitely is. It's just strange to hear that from that source, but he's right. Like he was talking about in the clip with Brees Hall and how dynamic he is at both rushing and, he's good out of the backfield catching the ball. And what you'd want to do is put 8, 9 guys in the box, but then that leaves Garrett Wilson one-on-one. And really, he didn't say this, but, just connect the dots here. Going from what the Jets had the last 2 years at quarterback to Aaron Rodgers in that situation is going to be the biggest thing changing it, because against Joe Flacco at that point in his career, or Mike White or Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian, you can get away with it because the chances of them finding the open Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, was not very good. But you would have to respect Rodgers and the ability for him to push the ball down the field. So then you're kind of left with like, okay, what do you do? Do you not double, but maybe give Garrett Wilson some, a shadow over the top with one of the safeties, and then that allows Brees Hall to do his damage in the running game and underneath in the passing attack. So I kind of again, it's weird, but I agree with Belichick. I think the Jets, assuming health, might cause some issues for opposing defenses with those two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how bold my prediction is here, but my bold prediction is that Brees Hall is going to go for over 2,000 all-purpose yards this year. I think he's going to have an absolute monster season. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's so good out of the backfield as a receiver, and he has Aaron Rodgers checking at the line of scrimmage, changing plays, and getting the ball in his hands. So I think Brees Hall is going to be a monster. But, you mentioned something there. You don't think that Belichick stayed up late at night game planning on how to slow down Joe Flacco and the New York Jets? You don't think that ever happened?
No, I think he could have did that in his sleep. Unfortunately, even old washed up Bill Belichick post Brady era, I don't think was really. He was laughing at Adam.
Hey,
at Adam Gase on the side.
I gotta stop you there. I gotta slow you down. Do not call future New York Giants head coach Bill Belichick washed up.
Oh, come on, Anthony. You are secretly sweating the idea of the Giants going 4-12. And you got to convince yourself that Bill Belichick and Dak Prescott are reviving the Giants in the glory days.
I am terrified of that possibility, but I'm also intrigued.
Yeah, I like the Dak part, but the Bill Belichick at 800 years old coming back and connecting with these Gen Z kids, I don't know if I buy it.
I don't know if I do either, but time will tell. For now, though, I think it's going to be fun watching. Hopefully, Brian Dable save his career with the Giants this season, and also watching this Jets offense reach its peak. Like Aaron Rodgers staying healthy last season would have been world changing, like not even game changing, world changing. The Jets could have been an excellent football team last season. They still won a bunch of games and had some really great moments without him in the lineup. And now Belichick's praise makes a lot of sense, because you look at this team and you look at this offense and you say, okay, now they upgraded the offensive line. They have some serious pieces there. They have an elite weapon in Garrett Wilson. They even added Mike Williams opposite him, Brees Hall in the backfield. what stops this Jets offense other than health? And so now with Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup, and again, one of the things that Belichick pointed out, he's going to have the autonomy to make a lot of changes at the line of scrimmage, read defensive matchups, make plays pre-snap. That's going to be what really separates this Jets offense this year from the years in the past. So really, really can't wait for it. And I mean, hey, we are 6 days away from getting our first taste of this offense and seeing Aaron Rodgers conduct this thing on Monday night. So can't wait to see it.
I don't know if you're ready for next week's Monday episode. I'm going to be a basket case next Monday because you have to understand that like this has just been the biggest tease since March of 2023 because we only had Aaron Rodgers for 4 plays. So we're waiting from March to September, like months for to finally see that. And then you get it for like half a second. And then you got to wait another full year on top of that. Like, Monday is going to be a different beast for me, and we'll get reaction to whatever good or bad happens from Giants Vikings. So Monday's show might be our new favorite here for a little bit.
Hey, I'm all for it. Be as much of a basket case as you want to be. Get as excited and happy as you can be. I'm just going to be a little bit jealous of you and envious of the fact that you can feel that way and be that excited about your football team. But like I've said before, Jets fans, you do deserve it. You've gone through hell and back for a decade now. So go ahead, be excited for this upcoming season. Just know I wish that I could feel the same way about this Giants team, but there are too many holes on this roster for me to get that excited and that hyped up for the season. But still excited nonetheless.
There you go. Johnny Boy says, man, I tell you guys, this Belichick and Tom Brady speaking about the Jets and saying the great praises about us, I think it's voodoo. What about that? What if they're trying to jinx the Jets? Like Tom Brady still has Aaron Rodgers in his top 5 quarterbacks and is singing all the praises of Rodgers. And now Belichick is praising Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. What if they're trying to do like the reverse and get the voodoo going? And they're back to their old ways in New England.
See, I don't think that it's voodoo, and I don't think that it's bad luck in any way. I am actually reading this in some ways as a little bit of pity. Like they feel bad for how much they've beaten up on the Jets for 2 decades. And so now they're trying to make up for lost time. And as they emerge into these kind of media careers post their NFL days, they're kind of like, okay, New York market, I got to get Jets fans to not hate me so much. Let me sing their praises and hype them up this offseason so that I can have a little bit more of a warm welcome into the media world. That's more so what I feel like it is. And I don't know if we want to feel like it's disingenuous or feel offended by that if you're a Jets fan, but that's more what I think it is. I don't think it's voodoo and bad luck. I think that it's just they're trying to play a little bit of pity and get back on Jets fans' good sides.
I see what you're saying on that. Did you see the story with Tom Brady in the booth and like how he's going to be really limited because he wants ownership in the Raiders?
I did not see that, but that does make sense because I could imagine that being in the booth while trying to get an ownership role could come with a lot of tampering problems.
Yeah, so essentially, like he's not allowed to criticize the Raiders, not the Raiders, the referees because of his interest in buying the Raiders, so or being a part of a group that's going to buy whatever percentage of the Raiders. But more of the story that feels very hard for a color commentator to like not comment on the refereeing in a game. I don't know how this is going to go. The guy I feel the worst for is Greg Olsen because he was really damn good in the booth. And they're like, well, we're paid Tom Brady a boatload of money, so you're going to get the boot, unfortunately.
My hot take, I could not stand listening to Greg Olsen as a commentator.
Wow, that is hot. That's maybe the hottest take that you've ever had on this show.
I did not enjoy him, like, at all.
Okay, so I guess you're looking forward to the Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady booth?
Yeah, I love Tom Brady. I am always enamored by any piece of information that he drops anytime he's in the media. I like listening to him talk. I think he's very charismatic. For me, I felt my criticism of Greg Olsen, not to go on too deep of a tangent here, I felt like he got all this praise for being a guy that simplified the intricacies of football for the greater audience. And I don't feel like he actually did that. I felt like he, in many ways, just over-explained very basic football to the audience. And it just became very condescending in some ways. Like that's how I felt. I didn't really like his commentary style. And I felt like he got a lot of praise that was just a little bit overblown.
All right. I'll let you. I'll let you look. I don't agree, but I get it. I could see how maybe it felt like he was talking down to the audience at times.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
Okay. One more from Johnny before we get back to the Giants. I swear on the home opener, if I see Vinny Testaverde anywhere near Aaron Rodgers, don't worry, Matt. I got it. I know a guy. LOL. I love Vinny Testaverde. He was, one of him and Chad Pennington kind of rotated around when I was getting into Jets football. So he's a Long Island guy too. Shout out Sewanaka High School. But if Vinny's there, he's got to go. We gotta take care of business there. So Johnny, we might need you on that one.
What if the current Vinny T is there watching the Jets game? What if Vincent Trocheck decides to make an appearance?
Oh, Vincent Trocheck. Okay, well, then I'd be a little bit nervous because that mean that the Jets are going to probably have a really good regular season and then disappoint at some point in the playoffs.
Matt, you better watch yourself. That one, that was a little too hot. That was a little too hot.
No, listen, the Rangers are due for another really good season coming up. I think they win the Metro this year. We can save the hockey talk for another day. Let's get back to the New York Giants here. As Darius Slayton, one of the longest tenured New York Giants, talks about the offensive line praise and how this might be the best offensive line since he's been here. Hard agree from me. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. He said, I think the quote, paraphrasing more exactly, was that this is the best he's ever seen the pass protection in training camp in any of the last 6 years. And it makes sense. I mean, you look at this offensive line compared to last season on paper, and I did that on my Twitter recently. I put the week 1 offensive line from last year and the week 1 offensive line this year. And I said, hey, rate this upgrade. Pretty much everybody was saying 8 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. Like, everybody's really excited about the upgrades that the Giants made on the offensive line, and it's not hard to see it, right? I mean, you took Evan Neal out of the lineup, so you don't have that liability at right tackle anymore. You have stability, in fact, with Jermaine Illuminor. You've got stability at left guard finally with John Runyon Jr. Obviously, we all project a big leap in year 2 from John Michael Schmitz. Let's see if that happens. But on paper, this offensive line looks a lot better. Throughout training camp, they looked a lot better. And now we just need to see it actually take shape during the regular season, because while we do believe this is the best Giants offensive line we've seen since Darius Slayton and Daniel Jones have been here, we have said that each of the last 5 years. I need to see it actually take shape in the regular season before I get too excited about it.
I was going to say, you know what this means now. The year 6 leap has to happen because there's no excuses for Daniel Jones. You got the playmaker, first round wide receiver. This is a pretty good wide receiver room, and the offensive line's much better. Daniel Jones got to be a top 10 quarterback now.
I am obviously with you on that. My problem is, and it's not a problem with anything that you're saying, it's a problem with some certain Giants fans. We've said this pretty much every year. No more excuses for Daniel Jones. Okay, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. Now he's got to be better. No excuses. Oh, they signed this offensive lineman, or they drafted Evan Neal, whatever. No excuses. He's got to be better. Oh, they brought in Kenny Galladay. Oh, now they brought in Darren Waller. No excuses. He's got to be better. Every year, something happens where we're like, all right, no more excuses for Daniel Jones. Got to deliver. Every year, a new excuse gets brought up. So this is the year that I'm hoping Giants fans finally just say, F it, no more excuses. Let's stand firm on that and make sure that he has a good year and we hold him accountable if he doesn't. But inevitably, I am sure that some sort of excuse will get brought up by season's end.
Well, JV Bronx says, I have faith in DJ. He had a lot not going his way, specifically the biggest distraction with Barkley. I'm glad he left. Now all the shine on the quarterback as it should be, and then follows it up with, he should be the face, not Barkley. Hot take. I would say hot take, JV Bronx. Anthony, how do you feel on that?
I mean, I'm also happy that Saquon Barkley left. I was kind of a big advocate for letting Saquon Barkley go over the last 2 years. I thought that paying him an extreme amount of money would be financially irresponsible of the Giants. So I'm glad that he is gone and the Giants have reinvested that money elsewhere. Like, you can't have Brian Burns, a star pass rusher, if you also have Saquon Barkley. And in terms of him being the face, I still don't know necessarily if Daniel Jones is the face of this team. In many ways, it feels like Brian Dable is, and that's the way it felt during the Joe Judge era too. He also felt like the face. It feels like the Giants haven't had a player be the face truly outside of Saquon Barkley. And since the Odell Beckham Jr. era, he was kind of the face of the team. But yeah, like spotlights on Daniel Jones. Everybody's staring him down and saying, are you going to make this $40 million per year contract worth it? Like, are you going to start to deliver on that? This is the year that he has to do it. And I don't know if removing Saquon Barkley from the lineup is going to help or hurt him long term. But one thing that I do know is adding Malik Neighbors to the lineup will help him. And I'm hoping that that results in a really big year from Neighbors and hopefully some improved statistics from Daniel Jones as well.
As I said, I feel like I'm going to repeat myself here, but there really are no excuses for Daniel Jones this year. It's really up to him to prove that he's the guy. If he does, great. I'll say hand up. I was wrong about Daniel Jones. He did prove it to me in year 6, but if not, then I think the Giants will be looking for a quarterback in the first round to the draft in 2025.
Yeah, and I can't lie. This past season of college, or this past weekend of college football, has me feeling a lot better about the fact that the Giants are going to be in the quarterback market in the upcoming offseason than I did a couple weeks ago, because obviously we've heard the chatter all since several months ago. This quarterback class is not going to be as good as the last quarterback class, and that's why the Giants really missed out on an opportunity. I've always said you can never judge a quarterback class a year in advance because you never know who's going to rise. Jaden Daniels last year, as an example, rose up the draft board after being considered a mid-round pick, number 2 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner. The player that I penned down very early on in the offseason as being that potential Jaden Daniels riser was actually Cam Ward. After he transferred to Miami, I had some question marks because I'm not sure about that fit for quarterback development. But week 1 of the college football season, I think he's like leading the Heisman race right now currently. So I think that he could be that riser. And there were just a lot of talented quarterbacks playing this weekend that looked like they could have potential to turn in really big collegiate seasons this year and become first-round picks. So I feel a little bit better now going through the season. I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on all those quarterbacks. And, you know, hopefully Daniel Jones puts up 50 touchdowns and we don't have to draft one in April. But I do feel better now knowing that there are some quarterbacks that seem primed to take that leap in their collegiate seasons and become top prospects in the upcoming draft.
Well, Johnny Boy says Daniel Jones is hot garbage. Let Tommy Cutlets rock. I know that's one that we could get behind. That's Big Apple Blitz's QB1. Doesn't matter what Joe Shane, Brian Dable, and the Giants say.
Doesn't matter to me. Tommy DeVito, whether he's on this team next year or not, he's QB1 for the rest of my life. Always QB1 in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to see it. Anything else on the Giants offensive line? Daniel Jones, quarterbacks, Darius Slayton.
Number one key for this offensive line is staying healthy. And I think that's a point to be made more so for the returning Giants players than it is for the newcomers. Like the new guys, John Runyon, obviously Greg Van Roten, Jermaine Illuminor, they also need to stay healthy because they're the upgrades. They're going to make the difference. But the real difference will be made by John Michael Schmitz actually playing 17 games this year. He missed a lot of time last year, and it really hurt him. And also, only 10 games out of Andrew Thomas last year as he dealt with that hamstring injury that just can't happen again. And it wasn't his fault that he got injured. I blame that on the Giants coaching staff for putting him on field goal unit. Please don't put him out there for that anymore. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But Andrew Thomas, he's had some injuries in the past. He has to stay healthy, and we just need to see good, solid health across this offensive line in order to see those excuses not rolling for Daniel Jones and for him to get the pass protection that he needs and deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think this is a huge year for John Michael Schmitz. Was banged up a little bit last year when he played. I thought very up and down. I think he needs to take a really big step forward, and the health for Thomas is the key. We know when he's on the field, he's one of the best left tackles. Got to feel really comfortable at the left side of the offensive line and the quarterback's blind side, but again, kind of just got to stay on the field there. How about this question? Kind of getting the opposing view. What is your take on the record for the Jets this season? I know Thursday's episode is going to be a little bit more preview heavy for both Jets and Giants, but did you have a record prediction in mind that we can maybe give a little bit of a sneak preview of what we'll get into on Thursday's show?
Yeah, for a sneak preview, maybe I won't reveal my actual record prediction right now. I'll do that in next episode, but I'll do record floor. I see 9 wins as the floor for this team.
Okay. I think that's fair.
But my prediction is a little higher, but I think floor, worst case scenario, this team is winning 9 games.
Okay. How about a floor to ceiling? What's on the positive side? What's the
I'm
ceiling?
going to go ceiling at 13.
Okay. Now, while we're on, I'll do for the opposite with the Giants. I'm thinking.
Say 0.
Well, no, I'm not going to say 0. I won't do it. I won't do that. I'm thinking like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more variance with the Giants than the Jets. Like the Jets window being from 9 to 13. That's what? Not 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 5. So I guess. Yeah, okay. I'll say Giants floor is 4 and their ceiling is 9. So that same window of 5 games.
I think that's fair. I wanted to put the floor at 9 for the Jets because I want to make the point. I don't think there's any way they walk out of the season with a losing record. I mean, even if injuries pile up, whatever, I think they're having a winning record no matter what.
Which would be huge. They haven't had one since 2015. That's almost 10 years.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair floor. Johnny's got some big predictions for the Jets. So
we'll pull this up. I have the Jets at 15-2. Johnny, that's insane. I hope you're right, brother. But I don't have the Jets winning. Spoiler: they will not be winning 15. It changed for San Fran game for me. I have the Giants winning streak at least 7 this year. So 7 wins for the Giants. Would you sign up for that?
I don't know. I don't know if I would sign up for it because it's probably not enough to make the postseason, and it's not enough to draft a quarterback. So I don't know if I mean, obviously I don't root for the Giants to lose, but hey, actually, you know what? Sure, sign me up, because if they're a middle team this year and they don't draft a quarterback and we go into the year 7 leap for Daniel Jones and it doesn't happen, everything blows up. You get the number 1 pick in 2026, Manning back under center, baby.
Okay, so we come full circle here, and then we go Arch Manning. So what is it? Arch Manning 2026 is the plan?
Arch Manning 2026. If we go 7 wins this year, we're middling team. Give me Arch, baby.
Listen, believe me, the worst place you could be is between 4 and 7 wins, which the Jets have pretty much been for as long as I can remember. Not really, but for a very long time, except for that 2-win season. You get a 2-win season, think you're going to get the franchise quarterback, you still don't. That really sucked. But 7 wins, that's enough to pick, like, I don't know, 12th and maybe draft a corner, something like that.
Good corner, maybe a good right tackle. I don't know, a foundational piece. Maybe you take a developmental quarterback in the middle rounds and have a stopgap next year. It all blows up. Boom. Manning back under center.
Arch Manning 2026. Print the t-shirts. That's the move. Guys, that's going to do it for us in this episode. We'll be back on Thursday. Heavy preview for both the Jets and the Giants. We will get into the Giants-Vikings game coming up that weekend. We will react on Monday to Giants-Vikings. We'll preview a little bit more. Jets 49ers, big stuff happening on the channel. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And I'm Matt. He's Anthony. We'll catch you next time.